Philosophy. Have you ever considered the ways in which our innermost dreams and passions can impact our inner peace? Calm. Today we explore a subject that is frequently shrouded in misunderstandings and taboos, yet it also serves as a motivating factor for many people who have sex. However, before drawing any judgments, pause for a moment. Instead of providing advice on how to have a better sexual life, this film will examine some daring and thought-provoking philosophical arguments against having sex. Set yourself up for a discourse that will question your behaviors, test your views, and possibly even take you down a new road. Take a seat, put your mind in philosophical mode, and get ready for it. Greater depth and preparedness for the task despite less travel presently, that we have established a basic understanding of Stoic philosophy. Let's move on to more in-depth exploration of self-control and self-control presently. I understand that we live in a society that frequently encourages us to act on our impulses and do what makes us feel good at the time. But let me tell you something. Sex, while one of the most intimate and enjoyable experiences of life, is also one of the most potent in its ability to alter our rationality and self-control. The Stoics, with their emphasis on self-discipline, teach us that we are more than just animals driven by our desires. Rather, we are capable of reason, choice, and self-control. Do you know what the true power of an individual is? It's not how much pleasure you can get, but rather how much self-control you have. Just picture yourself possessing the kind of self-control that enables you to make choices that are entirely consistent with your beliefs and aspirations in life. That's pure power. Friends, yes, abstaining from sex can be a way to practice self-control. This is not to say that sex is bad, but it can teach you a lot about your motivations, desires, and ultimately, who you are as a person. By mastering that impulse, you are also honing your ability to master other impulses and distractions that might be preventing you from achieving your greatest life goals. The key here is intentionality. If you're going to engage in any activity, even something as natural as sex, do so with full awareness and understanding of your motivations, ramifications. Whenever you practice self-control, you take charge of your life. You cease being a victim of your circumstances and desires, and take charge of your destiny. Therefore, the next time you find yourself in a situation requiring self-control, remember that you have the inner strength to make a choice, and that decision, my friends, can be the first step toward leading a more somber, meaningful, and ultimately more satisfying life. Second, detachment from fleeting pleasures. If the opening statement got you thinking, be ready, as we are about to go even further into the insightful lessons of Stoic philosophy. This time, we'll discuss the topic of detachment from fleeting pleasures. The Stoics teach us something very different. True peace and happiness come from detachment from not allowing our emotional well-being to depend on things that are beyond our control. And yes, that includes sexual pleasure. Modern society constantly bombards us with the idea that pleasure is good and that we should seek it out at every opportunity and avoid pain at all costs. But have you ever stopped to think about how long that pleasure really lasts? Often it is fleeting and dissolves almost as quickly as it came, leaving us yearning for more. Detachment from fleeting pleasures does not imply that you cannot enjoy life's wonderful things. Rather, it implies that you do not allow them control your behavior or dominate your thoughts. Detachment is a powerful tool that can help you transform your life. It won't make you a person devoid of emotions or desires, but rather an individual who has a deep understanding of what matters. When you become a master of yourself, you'll find a much more meaningful and long-lasting satisfaction than any fleeting pleasure could. Are you ready to begin practicing detachment and break free from the cycle of fleeting pleasures? You have inner power, so I know you can succeed. The first thing to accomplish is acknowledge that you possess the ability to select so. Decide third, concentrate on long-term objectives. Sensibly choose to be in charge. Select the freedom that comes with separation. We have examined the significance of exercising self-control and separating ourselves from fleeting pleasures. Next, we come to the equally revolutionary realization that long-term objectives are crucial. The foundation of a long-term aim is a lifetime of cultivation. Consider the great Stoic thinkers, such as Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Aurelius. They were not seeking for instant fulfillment, but rather were dedicated to values like wisdom, justice, and courage. The pursuit of immediate gratification can cause us to lose sight of what really matters, but focusing on long-term objectives can completely change the game. Suddenly, you are not trapped in a never-ending cycle of wanting, enjoying, and then wanting more. Instead, you are on a path with direction that will lead you to your best self right now. Prioritizing long-term objectives does not imply ignoring other matters. What it means is that your perspective changes, you stop being driven by what you want now and start moving based on what will be best for you in the future. And that has a powerful impact not only on the results you get, but also on the person you become in the process. This approach frees you from the emotional roller coaster that comes with seeking immediate pleasures. Instead, you find a much deeper sense of peace and contentment because you know you're working towards something that really matters. It's time for you to take inventory of your goals. Are they aligned with a long-term vision for your life? If not, maybe it's time to make some adjustments and remember, long-term goals are like a beacon in the distance. You may not know exactly how you will get there, but as long as you keep your gaze on it, you will always have a direction in which to move forth. Strengthen emotional relationships. After addressing the importance of focusing on long-term goals, it's time to take it a step further and talk about something we often underestimate: strengthening our emotional relationships. Yes, you read correctly. If there is one thing that Stoic philosophy has taught us, it is that interpersonal relationships are essential to leading a fulfilling life. Well-known Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus emphasize the value of social duty and empathy. We cannot live on our own. We are social beings by nature, and our relationships serve as a mirror in which we can see both our best and worst traits reflected. You may be wondering how this relates to avoiding sexual relations while adopting a Stoic approach. Well, by fostering stronger emotional bonds with one another, we can prevent fluttering sexual desire from clouding our judgment and compromise the integrity of our relationships. Quality of our interactions. In other words, while sex can be wonderful, if it takes precedence over other interactions, we may overlook the subtleties and deeper beauties of human connection. Instead, concentrate on developing relationships that have real meaning. Learn to listen, share, be vulnerable, and give without expecting anything in return. When you do this, you create a safe space for emotional growth, both for yourself and those around you, which in turn strengthens your character and makes you a more emotionally resilient and balanced individual. Don't you find it liberating to be free from the never-ending cycle of instant gratification and disappointment? You can enjoy deeper, more meaningful, and lasting connections if you're willing to take charge of your life. The key to living a complete life filled with intense feelings. 5 ways to avoid undesirable outcomes. It is now time to discuss a topic that is a little more practical, but still very important: avoiding unintended consequences. Yes, we are talking about the issues that, although we frequently overlook them in the heat of the moment, can have a lasting effect on our lives. Stoic philosophers have always emphasized the value of leading a moral life, and prudence is one of those virtues. Although we're not saying that sex is bad, it can be a beautiful expression of love and an essential part of human intimacy. Prudence also involves thinking through the long-term effects of our actions in the context of sex. These consequences can range from preventing STDs to avoiding complicated relationships, or in some cases, unintended pregnancies. Whether or not the sexual act you are thinking about genuinely fits with your core values and long-term well-being, consider whether this action will help you become the person you want to be, whether it will improve your life, and whether you are ready for any potential fallout. These questions are more than just mental exercises. They are useful tools that assist you in leading a more deliberate and conscious life. Trust me, they have great power in averting undesirable outcomes, safeguarding both you and your partner, as well as strengthening your own character by increasing your awareness, taking greater responsibility, and ultimately bringing you closer to the Stoic philosophy of leading a moral and meaningful life. Primary: preserve mental lucidity. Now let's discuss another important aspect of Stoic philosophy: preserving mental clarity. It's amazing how the modern world is always trying to divert our attention with distractions and stimuli. And yes, sex can be one of those things. However, let's take a moment to consider the importance of ataraxia, a state of tranquility and mental clarity free from emotional disturbances, as taught by the Stoics. When we let our sexual urges cloud our clarity, we may end up making rash decisions that not only negatively impact our emotional health, but also divert us from our long-term objectives. This is because it is during this state that we find our best selves, when we are most capable of making more logical decisions in line with our core values. The key here is not to avoid sex or any other pleasure in life, but to approach it with a clear and conscious mindset. Is this the person I want to share an intimate connection with? Will this sexual act improve my life and that of my partner? Will it lead to me being happier in the long run? If you can answer these questions with a resounding and conscious yes, then you are on the right track. Let us remember that mental clarity is one of our most powerful tools in the search for a fulfilling relationship. Now is the right moment to discuss conservation, a notion that, despite its somewhat ethereal sound, is fundamental to the lives of all those who wish to live stoically. Energy. Conservation. In a society where we are expected to always be on, it is understandable that many of us feel burned out. Yes, sex uses energy just like any other human activity does, but the important question is whether that energy is being used for long-term benefits or is it just being spent momentarily. Enjoyments. In other words, it is important that we think about where we are spending our life energy. Are we putting it into activities that foster our personal growth, strengthen our relationships, and contribute to our peace of mind? Or are we wasting it on instant gratification that leaves us empty and exhausted? Stoics are big proponents of channeling our energy effectively and directing it toward actions and goals that really matter. Every sexual act can be a beautiful and nourishing experience, but it can also be a drain of energy if it is not in line with our deepest values and objectives. In certain cases, it is preferable to save that energy for higher goals, such as a life project that needs all of our focus or a relationship that needs to be cared for and loved instead of being consumed by impulsive behaviors. You are the owner of your energy. Are you going to waste it or use it wisely to create a life that aligns with your most authentic self? Take charge. Conserve your energy for what truly matters, and stay on the path to a life full of meaning and purpose. Betting on energy conservation is not a call to abstinence, but rather an invitation to be more conscious of how and with whom we share our vital energy. At the end of the day, energy is finite, and once spent, it takes time and effort to recover. You are in charge of making decisions and avoiding emotional reliance. In this 8th point, we'll discuss a subject that not many people dare to discuss but is really important: emotional reliance. The Stoic school of thought emphasizes the value of eiki, or being emotionally and intellectually present. Self-sufficient in the pursuit of a life well lived, we cannot allow ourselves to be slaves to our emotions, much less the emotions that others may generate in us. And this is where sex can become a double-edged sword, especially if it becomes a mechanism to gain validation, love, or even just attention. Yes, sex can be a beautiful experience, a form of deep and meaningful connection with another person. But when it becomes the only means through which we believe we can obtain love or validation, we become emotionally dependent. This is not the path to emotional freedom that the Stoics promote. Why put the key to your happiness in someone else's pocket? Why allow your inner peace to depend on something as volatile as another person's attention or affection? That's a risky bet. And more often than not, one that will leave us disappointed. So what to do first? You need to cultivate your own inner garden. To speak in Stoic terms, you need to know that you are enough on your own, that you have the power and ability to create happiness and meaning from within. By doing so, any relationship you have will become an addition to your already rich life, not a prerequisite to feeling complete focus on building a strong relationship with yourself before looking for it in others. Make a list of your strengths, consider your accomplishments, and address your weaknesses. Remember that avoiding emotional dependence is not the same as avoiding human connections. Rather, it's about having the strength and wisdom to know where to direct our emotional energy and not allowing other people's actions or feelings to dictate our inner peace. This is not about trying to make other people happy, but about growing and evolving as a human being. 9. Enhance self-esteem. The subject we will cover next is one that is related to all we have already covered. It's easy to feel good about ourselves when things are going well, but the actual test of self-esteem is how we feel when things get difficult. Simply put, self-esteem is the durable, robust image you have of who you are at your core. Stoic philosophy serves as a reminder that materialistic pleasures like sex are not a practical means of enhancing our self-worth. Sure, it can provide us with a little boost in self-esteem and quick fulfillment, but after that moment passes, we're left feeling empty or worse, back where we started. In light of this, how can one develop self-esteem from a Stoic perspective? It starts with self-awareness, which is fully recognizing who we are, our talents, and our flaws. Rather than looking for approval from others, we should create our own internal success and satisfaction measures. This entails living by values like intelligence and courage. Living by these values will make you more respectful of yourself and a person that other people will value and respect as well. Justice and self-discipline. Enhancing one's self-esteem is an ongoing process of self-discovery rather than a final goal. Introspection and personal development. When you follow the Stoic path, you come to understand that you don't need fleeting pleasures to justify your existence or boost your self-esteem. Therefore, the next time you find yourself in a situation where you're tempted to use sex or any other form of pleasure to boost your self-esteem, take a moment to breathe and remember that your value comes from the strong, moral character that you are developing every day, rather than from passing experiences. 10. Respect for personal values and principles. Now that we have come to the end of this amazing journey through the Stoic reasons to think of sexual abstinence as a conscious choice, I want to talk to you about something important before we wrap up: respect for your own values and principles. One of the most valuable aspects of Stoic philosophy is its emphasis on living in harmony with nature, which includes upholding a strong set of principles and values. This is not the kind of treasure you find in fleeting pleasures. Rather, it's something you develop day by day, decision by decision. For example, imagine yourself in a situation where you feel pressured to compromise your personal values regarding sex, whether from your partner, friends, or even society. The Stoics would advise you to stop, reflect, and act in accordance with your principles rather than the expectations of living by your values, and principles gives you a kind of armor. It is not a barrier that isolates you from the world, but rather a filter that helps you interact with it in a more meaningful and authentic way. When you give in to external pressure, you are not only being unfair to the other person by not giving them your authentic self, you are also being unfair to yourself. This method enhances your general well-being and makes any relationships you have richer, deeper, and more linked. If you ever find yourself at a crossroads, keep this principle in mind: clear reflections of who you are and what you value most. Thank you for joining me on this journey to understand how Stoic wisdom can enrich our understanding of sex and relationships. By pausing and considering which course of action most closely aligns with your values, you not only respect yourself, but you also invite respect from others, setting a standard of integrity and authenticity. Each point we have discussed is a step towards a fuller, more conscious and authentic life. Final reflection: incredible true. We've traveled a less conventional path together today, exploring how Stoic philosophy can influence our decisions about something as intimate and personal as sex. But let us not forget that the essence of Stoicism is not to limit ourselves, but to free ourselves from irrational impulses, from society's approval, and from everything that does not align with our deepest values and principles. Sometimes, in the search for pleasure or emotional connection, we forget to ask ourselves essential questions. Will this action lead to sustainable well-being? Or is it just a momentary pleasure? Am I compromising my values at this moment? Am I really present in this experience, or am I just a passive participant? If you want to take away one thing from this video, let it be this: you are not alone on this journey towards self-knowledge and self-realization, and every conscious choice you make based on sound principles brings you one step closer to the kind of life you aspire to. Have a life where happiness is not a fleeting emotion, but a sustained state of well-being and meaning. So as we move forward, let us always remember that we are the architects of our own lives. The plans are in our hands. It's time to draw lines that reflect our values, not someone else's expectations or standards. I appreciate you coming and allowing yourself to be open to new ideas. Until the next time, remember to live consciously and stoically. And if this content has touched you, made you think, or even somewhat changed your life, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and share it with others who might find it useful.